Hi, I'm Alex. A 52-meter object should not be floating. It should not be bobbing in the Indian Ocean after falling from the edge of space, punching through the atmosphere, and hitting the water at terminal velocity. But that was the image. Starship's upper stage, Ship 40, intact after its 13th test flight, the first upper stage in history to survive a controlled vertical splashdown without shattering. The vehicle weighs roughly 100 tons. It is not a boat. It was never meant to be a recovery target. Yet there it was, a steel cylinder standing vertical in open water, waiting to be dragged home. That contradiction is the entry point. The news will tell you 4 separate stories about Elon Musk's companies: a recovered rocket stage, a hovering supercar, a colossal chip factory, and a Swedish labor standoff that ended without a contract. On the surface, they look unrelated. A rocket is aerospace. A supercar is automotive. A chip plant is infrastructure. A union fight is organizational politics. But underneath, the same operating logic appears. Treat impossible constraints as feedback loops, not as fatal barriers. The rocket was not supposed to survive, so the company built a system to learn from it when it did. The car was delayed for years, so the company used every delay to redesign it. The chip shortage made the company a tenant, so it started buying the building. The strikes could not be won through negotiation, so the company absorbed the pain and kept the machinery running. That pattern is the real story. It is not genius. It is not capital alone. It is the systematic willingness to own the ugly parts of feedback. Start with what intact recovery actually gives you. Before this, SpaceX had never recovered a space-flown Starship upper stage. The engineering team had telemetry, temperature, pressure, acceleration, vibration, video from onboard cameras. Telemetry is a map of what the sensors were designed to see. A recovered vehicle is the territory itself. When engineers finally inspect Ship 40 in calm water and then bring it back to the starbase, they will be able to see the precise condition of metal, welds, seals, and heat tiles after re-entry. Did salt water penetrate the seams? Did the tiles erode more on one side? Which parts held under aerodynamic load? And which parts were close to failure? Remote data cannot answer those questions with the same certainty. This is why the recovery matters even though the stage will never fly again. Intact does not mean reusable. The seawater immersion and tile wear make Ship 40 a forensic sample, not a quick turnaround vehicle, but a forensic sample can be worth an entire fleet if it changes the next iteration. Now consider how hard it was to get that sample. The recovery team spent 24 days dragging the stage through rough seas before reaching sheltered water near Christmas Island on the 18th of August, 2026. This was not a lucky grab. It was a hostile maritime operation against wind, waves, and a 100-ton object that did not want to be towed. Photographers with long lenses eventually captured the stage floating offshore, and they described it not as a rocket, but as an apartment block, 2 or 3 stories tall and 8 to 10 units wide, sitting where no apartment block should be. That comparison is useful because it explains the difficulty. You cannot simply winch an apartment building onto a barge in heavy swell. The recovery had to be slow, repeated, and improvised. The wind came only after sustained friction. That is the detail most people ignore. They see the final photograph and assume it was the plan all along. The plan was always conditional, and the conditions were terrible. That brings me on to the second story, the Roadster. So you are probably thinking the second-generation Roadster is just the eternal teaser. Wrong. The delays were a different kind of data. The car was first revealed in 2017, with deliveries originally promised for 2020. Since then, it has slipped at least 8 or 9 times. That sounds like failure if you measure only calendar time, but in 2022, the project was torn down and rebuilt. Tesla abandoned the original Plaid conversion plan, brought in a former Lamborghini director to lead the vehicle, and pulled in propulsion engineers from the Starship program. The architecture became a full carbon fiber supercar structure rather than a modified sedan chassis. Each delay did not just postpone the buyer. Each delay changed what the car was. That is the difference between stalling and iterating. Not every delay is productive, but these delays left visible fingerprints on the product. Some early reservation holders saw the endless rescheduling and walked away, including a few celebrities who had put down deposits. Their exits are not a footnote. They prove that this is not a clean genius story. The cost of iteration is real in money, trust, and reputation. Then came the hover demo. Tesla planned to show an unmanned roadster floating off the ground at SpaceX's McGregor test site. The mechanism is a cold gas thruster system, code named A71, that pushes compressed gas downward to generate lift. The idea is not new inside the company. A former Tesla president has said the concept of putting rocket thrusters on the roadster goes back to 2016. What changed is that the two companies are now close enough to make it visible. The demo was heavily restricted because the thruster noise is brutal and can potentially damage eardrums. The car had to be controlled remotely with no human in the seat, and spectators had to stay hundreds of yards away. This is not a minor detail. A supercar that hovers is not a practical production feature. It is a signal. The cold gas bridge between SpaceX and Tesla shows that propulsion knowledge is moving across the corporate boundary, and that the Roadster has become a testbed rather than just a product. It is easy to call it a stunt. The physical noise, the remote control, the safety perimeter all say it is a carefully managed demonstration. The careful part is what matters. The third story is even bigger. Tesla, SpaceX, and Intel are jointly behind a chip factory in Texas called Terafab. The initial investment is $16.8 billion. The long-term vision reaches $119 billion, with production targeted for 2029. The motive is not hard to find. Global AI compute covers only 2% of what Musk's businesses say they need. That is a wild gap. If you need that much compute and you are renting it from a handful of foundries, you are a tenant. A tenant has no control over allocation, lead time, or pricing. Terafab is an attempt to become the landlord. The planned footprint exceeds 100 million square feet, roughly 50 times the size of the Pentagon. It is designed to vertically integrate manufacturing and packaging, targeting 1 terawatt of annual AI compute. In the future, about a quarter of the output would go to Tesla hardware and 3/4 to space AI and spacecraft. That allocation tells you where the strategic center of gravity is moving. The car business is important, but the compute business is existential. But the factory is not a fairy tale. The subsidies and the fine print matter. Terafab received a $30 million grant from a Texas fund plus 8 school district tax abatements. That is a modest public sweetener for a project of this scale. More important is water. Advanced chip manufacturing consumes enormous amounts of water, and the plan includes drawing from a reservoir. That dependency is rarely mentioned in the hype pieces, but it is a real constraint in Texas. Intel's deep support and the use of its 14er process give the project credibility, and Tesla has started a separate $30 billion pilot wafer plant on its North Campus to undercut the TSMC monopoly. Yet the long-term target of 2029 is not guaranteed. Yield ramp, capital allocation, and equipment availability can all push the timeline. SpaceX's June 2026 public listing reportedly raised $75 billion, which gives the broader ecosystem a capital cushion. But a $100 billion vision is still an uncommitted long-range number. The idea is serious. The execution is still early. Now move to Sweden, where the third and fourth stories intersect. The If Metal Union ended its strike after 1,021 days. Tesla never signed a collective agreement. Instead, it bought out every striking worker and kept the business running. The union called it a break from the Swedish model, using methods unseen since the 1930s. The tactics were methodical, rerouting deliveries through Germany, obtaining license plates through the courts, and hiring replacement labor. By the end, active strikers had dwindled to 4. That is a startling number. A movement that once included more than a dozen Nordic unions was reduced to a single-digit count. The human cost is real. Buying out workers is not the same as winning an argument, and the union's criticism deserves to sit in the narrative without being dismissed. But the business result is also real. During the conflict, staff retention stayed above 90%, the Model Y remained the best-selling vehicle, and Tesla recorded 21,800 registrations in Sweden in 2024. The organization absorbed the pressure and continued operating. The most tangible aftermath is the charging network. For nearly the entire standoff, electricians' unions blocked Tesla's supercharger grid connections. 20 sites with more than 250 finished charging points sat dead. The hardware existed, the power did not. When the blockade lifted, 264 superchargers across those same locations came online at once, expanding Sweden's national network by more than 20% overnight. Those were the ghost superchargers built visible, useless, until the organizational fight ended. This is latent capacity. It only shows up when the feedback loop closes. The charges were not suddenly built. They were already there. The system simply had to unlock them. That is the part AI and capital cannot copy. The 4 wins look like engineering or capital victories, but each one turned on a human judgment call under uncertainty. The decision to tow ship 40 through 24 days of rough ocean was not dictated by a spreadsheet. The decision to scrap the plaid conversion and redesign the Roadster from scratch cost time and money, and no algorithm could prove it would work. The decision to buy out the Swedish strikers rather than sign a collective agreement was a legal, ethical, and organizational gamble. These choices were made by people who could tolerate long, messy feedback. Academic researchers from Lund University have noted that Swedish unions struggled against the company because they faced high labor turnover, replacement workers, and a mismatch between old collective models and new organizational forms. That does not make the unions wrong. It makes the playing field uneven. It also reveals the moat. AI can process data. It cannot decide to absorb a 3-year standoff. Capital can buy hardware. It cannot decide that leaving chargers unpowered is still worth building them. The real competitive advantage is pattern recognition and the willingness to suffer through unresolved feedback. That means the system can be scored. Take 4 dimensions. The first is feedback quality. Ship 40's recovery gives physical evidence rather than remote guesses. That is high feedback. The second is delay tolerance. The Roadster S redesign uses delay as a product development tool rather than a public relations emergency. The third is asset ownership. Terafab moves from renting compute to owning the means of production. The fourth is negotiation resilience. The Swedish outcome shows a willingness to hold a position through 3 years of friction and then activate stored capacity. You can apply the same scorecard to any business project or even a side hustle. Ask what kind of feedback you actually receive. Ask how you treat a delay. Ask whether you own the bottleneck or rent it. Ask how long you can stay in a conflict without abandoning your floor. The scorecard is not a personality test. It separates replicable patterns from hero worship. So there are 2 ways to read these events. The panic spectator sees random stunts, a giant rocket in the ocean, a car hovering on gas, a factory bigger than a Pentagon, a union fight ending in silence. The pattern reader sees one system: the floating rocket, the hovering supercar, the chip factory, and the reactivated charges are not 4 stories. They are one feedback loop wearing 4 different costumes. The next dominant company may not look like a tech giant. It may be a manufacturing firm, a logistics network, or a small capitalized team that learns faster than its rivals. But it will probably use the same loops. It will own its bottlenecks. It will treat delay as data. It will take evidence seriously. It will refuse to panic when the short-term story looks bad. That is the entire difference. The spectator waits for a hero. The pattern reader builds a scorecard. If you want to know which side you are on, look at how you respond to friction. One group sees it as the ending. The other sees it as the material. I know which one I would bet on.